9-0 here.
Portland passed on Michael Jordan on 1984 draft night. Less than 3 years later, on January 8th, 1987, he made them regret it. With Drexler watching helplessly, a 23-year-old Jordan unleashed one of the most efficient, dominating performances ever. No threes, no supporting cast, no mercy. 53 points, one win, one massive message. Y'all made a big mistake. What did Drexler see that night? It changed his perspective on greatness forever. It's 1987. The Chicago Bulls are still irrelevant. Jordan's leading the league with an absurd 37.1 points per game. But critics dismiss him as just a highlight guy. No playoff series wins, no Pippen, no rings. Just a kid carrying an entire franchise. Meanwhile, Portland is thriving. Clyde the Glide Drexler is flying. And the Blazers boast 7 players averaging double figures. They're deep, explosive, fearless. And they had a choice on draft night 84. Take Michael Jordan or double down on Clyde. They chose Sam Bowie because they already had their own version of MJ. But 3 years later, Jordan was determined to remind them of that mistake, personally. Before the rings, before the dynasty, before he became the global icon, Jordan was still fighting uphill battles. 3 seasons in, not even a single second-round playoff appearance. But he never forgot the 1984 draft night. He wanted to go first. If that wasn't possible because of Hakeem Olajuwon's hype, he wanted to go second. The Blazers owned that pick. And they didn't just pass on him, they passed for a broken big man. Jordan carried that with him forever. And across from him was Clyde Drexler, Portland's Jordan. Explosive, high-flying, and capable of going bucket for bucket with anyone in the league. The stage was set. Clyde the Glide versus Air Jordan. Only one would walk away as the real Air. What's more, on January 8, 1987, Drexler would become the victim of MJ's wrath. Clyde wasn't to blame for his franchise deciding to pass on Mike. But at the same time, he was the reason they didn't draft him. That's why the packed Chicago Stadium was about to witness one of the greatest scoring displays in basketball history. And when referee Paul Mihalik tossed the ball into the air, there was no turning back. The die was cast. But just 10 seconds into the game, Michael showed that luck was not going to be a factor that night, because he didn't need it. With a shot from 15 feet, he scored his first 2 points of the night after an offensive rebound by Brad Sellers. In fact, offensive rebounding was one of the factors that made the difference early in the game. Moments later, Charles Oakley grabbed another one and found cutting Michael Jordan for an easy basket with a pinpoint pass. Michael also started the night active on defense, as always, getting steals that guaranteed the Bulls extra possessions. Moreover, his defensive pressure didn't start at the three-point line. It started more than 80 feet away from the basket. Look at this play, in which he gets a steal just a few feet from the rim that allows him to add 2 more points in the first quarter. But even so, Clyde the Glide began to fly through the Chicago defense to attack the paint again and again. During that first quarter, MJ began to warm up his spots. His mid-range game was too powerful to be contained by a single defender. But the truth is that multiple defenders did not guarantee a stop. Besides, Jordan was a fighter. If the rock didn't come to him enough because of the intense defense, he would find a way to get it himself. Take, for example, this play, where he grabs the defensive rebound and then banks in the easy layup. But even so, when MJ got the rock in a good position, you knew what was going to happen. Even against a double team, he would find a way to finish after a crafty move. This time, spinning baseline for the layup, a move in which he also gets the and one. Shortly after, Jordan received the ball again in the same position, but this time, he finished in a completely different way. He also went to the baseline, but this time to knock down the fadeaway in his defender's face. In fact, his threat was so powerful that the Blazers players could only foul him to contain him, to restrict his scoring in some way. But that's something we were certainly used to from Michael. He was capable, like modern superstars, of going to the free throw line at will, a player truly ahead of his time. The good ball movement and chemistry that the Bulls were beginning to show also allowed Michael, from time to time, to enjoy an open look from his best spots, something he always appreciated with a bucket, as is the case in this play. But on many occasions, Jordan was the initiator who created looks for his teammates. In this play, he uses the extra attention he receives from the Portland defense to find Sedale Threet, who connects from the elbow. However, Jordan continued to carry the Bulls' offense with his own scoring. For the third time in the first half, he receives the ball in a right low block, and this time he opts to go right into the paint. There, with an acrobatic finish, he is once again able to get the and one. But the most incredible thing is that, despite Michael's incredible masterclass, the Bulls are down by no less than 15 points on the scoreboard. With a lot of work to do, Jordan receives the ball again in one of his hot spots that night, the top of the key, and from there goes left to knock down yet another jumper. But none of that was enough. At halftime, the Bulls were being destroyed. There was not a glimmer of hope in their game. Only Michael was stepping up, and even that didn't seem enough, because despite being the best scorer in the league, Clyde Drexler's Blazers were outplaying them by a wide margin. Stu Inman, the GM who decided to pass on Michael on that night of the 1984 draft, was smiling. But that smile, yeah, it wouldn't last long. Jordan came out of the tunnel possessed, determined to achieve his goals. It didn't matter that two defenders were harassing him and not letting him breathe, because he always came through. Look at the surreal pass he makes to Charles Oakley when the defense least expects it. On the next play, the defense makes the mistake of leaving Michael Jordan wide open from mid-range. Imagine how scared they were that he would drive to the basket. Of course, Michael drills the two. Meanwhile, Clyde Drexler continued to dominate on the other side of the court to keep the Blazers ahead. However, Jordan always found the answer. He always had a solution for all the Bulls' problems. This time, he scores down low after a great pass from Gene Banks. MJ fought for every ball as if it were his last. Any loose ball was an opportunity to close the gap on the scoreboard. But man, Clyde Drexler was also having a monster game. He was driving the Bulls' defense crazy, scoring even in situations that were outside his comfort zone. But as always, Michael Jordan responded almost immediately. This time, using his threat from the mid-range, he decided to go straight to the hoop to finish with another acrobatic layup. The Bulls were getting closer and closer on the scoreboard, and Drexler was still doing everything he could to keep Portland afloat. He scored basket after basket on every Blazers trip. Unfortunately, MJ had already warmed up. There was no human way to stop him, and proof of that is this incredible dunk in which the Portland players practically have to get out of the way. A dunk that energized all the fans at Chicago Stadium, who had seen a game that seemed impossible become more and more possible. Now, even despite this morale boost, Clyde Drexler kept doing exactly the same thing. He was scoring practically impossible shots, but Michael was doing the same, using his physicality to draw fouls. In fact, on this play, he almost connects with an and one from behind the backboard. Just crazy! Despite leading the Bulls in scoring every night, Michael was making great strides as a passer. A good example is this play, in which after MJ collapses the defense, he's able to find Corzine for an easy layup. Shortly after, Elston Turner returns the favor to Michael with a good pass in transition for Jordan to finish with an easy dunk. Little by little, the gap between the two teams narrowed. Finally, after this play by Michael, the Bulls took the lead. Look at his incredible skill, his footwork, and his magnificent touch from 14 feet to bank the shot when the defense least expects it. Unstoppable. And look how, moments later, Jordan is able to find Corzine again for the easiest basket of his life after an incredible double clutch pass that fools the entire defense. For some reason, it seemed like the Blazers were still terrified of Michael's drives, so they opted to keep letting him shoot from the mid-range. But man, they were wrong. That night, Jordan couldn't miss. Despite being double-teamed or even triple-teamed, he continued to dominate every possession. Look how he's able to spin baseline to get rid of two defenders just before knocking down an incredible double-clutch reverse layup. Michael was doing things that only the Harlem Globetrotters were capable of doing at that time. And when it looked like he was going to do exactly the same thing, Jordan always changed the script. Again, after making the defense collapse, he was able to find Charles Oakley wide open in the mid-range for another assist. A move very similar to the one Jordan made a few seconds later, finding Brad Sellers wide open at the top of the key. However, one of the highlights of the game was yet to come. Look at how Michael sends Clyde Drexler to the floor after an incredible spin move that completely disorients the Blazers star. Yeah, then he's fouled and misses the layup. But please, someone give Clyde a map. Right after that, to close out the game, MJ completes an incredible sequence. First, he knocks down the jumper off the dribble in the face of Kiki Vandeweghe. Then he rushes back to defense to swat Kiki's shot, who has just spent 10 of the worst seconds of his life right there. Luckily for him, the referees called a foul on the play, but it was too late. The game was over. Jordan had run over the Portland Trail Blazers. With 53 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, Michael Jordan didn't just win a game. He made Portland face a nightmare. Passing on him was the biggest mistake in NBA history. This wasn't prime Michael Jordan with rings, the global icon easily recognizable all around the world. This was a raw obsession, pure revenge. A man so fueled by slights, he turned them into masterpieces. For Bulls fans, it was hope. For Blazers fans, heartbreak. For Drexler, a reminder that even his greatness had limits. And for everyone watching, it was proof. Proof that one day soon, Michael Jordan would be inevitable. Because after January 8, 1987, the league understood. You could pass on Michael Jordan once, but you'd spend the rest of history regretting it. Now here's the real question. Was Clyde Drexler closer to Michael Jordan than history gives him credit for? Or was this the night the GOAT conversation ended before it even began? If you were watching in '87, where were you when Jordan dropped 53 on the Blazers? Drop your story in the comments. If you live for legendary breakdowns, epic rivalries, and the moments that made basketball history, subscribe to First 5 Hoops and join a community of real basketball fans. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.